I think it's important for us to understand that when we're covering from this side of the conflict, many of them see this as a fight against extremists, neo-Nazis, nationalists in Ukraine. The media in Russia and in Donetsk and Lugansk is carefully controlled, and this is why Vladimir Putin says he's launched this, what he calls a special operation, to clear out these nationalists. So that is how many people see this fight. I'm Bernard Smith, a correspondent with Al Jazeera, currently in Moscow, and between us this has been a uniquely challenging assignment because of the scrutiny on foreign media. After Vladimir Putin annexed Crimea in 2014, separatists seized power in two provinces within Donbass, that's Lugansk and Donetsk. And then a war started for control of those two areas. There were these front lines that had been frozen for about 8 years. So after independence was recognized and Vladimir Putin sent in the troops, that's when these front lines started to move. Buhas is one of these classic examples of this village caught along these frozen conflict front lines. It's now controlled by Russian-backed Donetsk forces. There was this intense fighting there, and we got there just the day after it had been essentially, we were told, secured. People had been in bunkers. When we arrived, they'd just come out of those bunkers to get the food that was being handed out by the Donetsk authorities. They'd had no electricity, water or gas for the last 10 days. It was quite an unusual situation for me talking to those people in Buhas, because our visit to Buhas was facilitated by people from Donetsk. There would have been no other way for us to go there without getting the permits and the permission to enter Donetsk and go that way. You are essentially going in with people who have captured territory from a sovereign state, from Ukraine. Like it is in Russia, in Donetsk and Lugansk, it's very hard to get a real, true, independent understanding of what most people think. People are nervous to get into the politics of it. Instead, they emphasize that they just want peace. I think the current mood in Moscow, on the face of it, seems fairly normal, except that now you are seeing lots of stores closing. Lots of Western brands are closing down. McDonald's has just closed, Starbucks, you name it, Uniqlo. But it's very hard, again, to get a genuine idea of what Russians feel about it. Most Russians get their news off the television, and that news is state-controlled. People are having a little bit more courage. There was this very courageous woman on Russian state television who ran onto the set during the main news broadcast with a big poster shouting "No to war, don't believe the propaganda, they're lying to you." That really takes a lot of courage to do something like that. Here in Moscow, the police are making it very difficult for people to try and protest. So when we as journalists go out to cover what might be protest, by law we have to wear these yellow jackets, yellow vests that distinguish us as press from potential protesters. There was one example of a woman in a Russian city who just stood there on her own with a blank piece of paper, nothing written on it, and she was taken away for questioning. When I went out to cover some protests a couple of weeks ago, people just, to me, looked like they were just loitering a little bit too long in a place where protests might have gathered. They were dragged away for questioning. That's how difficult it is to protest. The Kremlin will not be concerned about what few attempts to protest there are, so they won't have any impact, and they're not covered anyway in the mainstream Russian state-controlled media. If there is increasing discontent in Russia about this war, and it's very hard to suggest that there is or to show that there is, but if there is, it's very hard for people to manifest that publicly. Вы будете привлечены к ответственности по статье 26